Oh crap, guys, it started.
Oh man.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Dang it. Not again. Anyway, yo, what's poppin', APUSH peeps?
Our podcast was about people and how they migrated to from and within North America. So we did periods 1 through 9, and we had different experts for each period, or each 3 periods. And so we're just going to talk about why people migrated to, from, and within North America.
Our podcast name is
APUSH to America.
You know?
I'm Amshala, and I covered periods 1 to 3, which is all about how we started, how America became America. So probably one of the most important periods I'm covering.
Hello, my name's Erica. I mean, you probably know that because, you know, my periods were 4 through 6, you know, the best periods I would say for migration, you know. You get the new waves to new people. You got the new immigrants and the old immigrants. So I think that's pretty dope, so.
Okay, hi, I'm Megan. I'm doing periods 7 to 9. I'm doing, you know, after World War I, 2, 3, eventually. Great Depression, containment, communism, all that good stuff. So obviously, my thing is the best.
Okay.
And my name is Jordana, and provide insight on all the periods, because I'm just that special.
Take it away.
Let's start with periods 1 through 3, Amshala.
Alright, so it's all about basically how did we get here? Well, it started way back when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Actually, even before that. Because when natives first got there, how they got here in the first place was they crossed the Bering Strait from Asia, what is modern-day Siberia, and they spread out as hunter-gatherers looking for their food, and they just followed their food wherever it took them. But eventually, they became like settled communities, and they started developing crops like corn, squash, and beans, and they really grew themselves into a well-developed society. Then came the Europeans. They came, and their arrival just took out much of the native population. Much of them died because of the diseases that the Europeans brought over. Europeans came in search of
God, glory,
and
gold.
Right?
Gold.
They came in search of those 3 things, right?
3Gs.
So they came, and so when they first came over, they were like, who are these people? What are they doing here? So then they just used them for their own services. So basically we have Europeans and natives. And once the Europeans came over, it's like no natives, but all Europeans. And they just take over the eastern half. So we go into period 2. Period 2 is when the cultures, the religions, they start spreading out based on their cultures and like what they are looking for. So like if you're in search of economic opportunities, then you're going to be in the Chesapeake Bay area growing like agricultural plantations. If you're like religious persecution escapers, then you are in the New England area.
Yeah,
Dude,
I'd like
so
to butt in
popular.
really fast. So, like, in periods 6 through 9, you know, you had the people, like, the Jewish people. From Russia, they were escaping persecution, so they came over, you know, they settled in America. And then
Right.
you also had the Irish, they were coming over because of the potato famine, you know, escaping that. And then you had the Mormons within America moving away because they were getting
Moved to
treated bad.
Utah. There's a common theme throughout APUSH or U.S. history of people escaping like persecution or like other things to try to find a better life in America, and so you'll see that throughout this podcast.
America's like their safe haven.
Yeah, it's like for some reason
Even
it's
though
a safe haven.
sometimes
Even though
it
we have
doesn't
APUSH,
really,
so
it didn't
it's really not that much of a safe haven. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and then, you know, you got, like, the natives movement growing. Especially, I mean, basically from the beginning, they never really liked the Indians, and from then on.
Anyone that's
Well,
a
I mean,
different color than white.
it
depended on the culture.
Yeah, but
And the
especially
religion of Native
there was
Americans.
that program where they
Especially
did it, like,
English.
yeah.
Hated Native Americans.
Yeah, the French and natives kind of got along. They traded and stuff, but English, Spanish, they did not get along. So anyways, one of the biggest colonies was the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which was founded by John Winthrop, and it was very not religiously tolerant. So he kicked out like a bunch of peeps, like Roger Williams.
and Hutchinson.
Right.
Rhode Island.
And they got exiled. But Roger Williams was like, I'm not taking this. So he went to Rhode Island and he started his own colony, which is religiously tolerant, which is also known as Rhode Island. So Rhode Island became a safe haven for anyone who did not like the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Then we have Connecticut, which was founded by Thomas Hooker and John Davenport, who are also exiles. But, you know, they started their own colonies and they were able to become a very nice colony. Okay, so we also have Maryland,
welcoming colony,
which was founded by the Calvert family, and they basically
Baltimore.
and they basically made Maryland as a safe haven for Catholics to worship in peace. We have the Carolinas, which is a prosperity colony, and Maryland and Carolina became plantation-dominated economies, so it means they depended on slave labor, so then slaves started coming in. Because at first they used natives for labor, but then because they all died because of the Europeans and the diseases, we had to bring over slaves. They had to bring over slaves from Africa, and then that's how the slaves really came into place.
Like during the Middle Passage and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And many of the Africans actually died during the Middle Passage, so a lot of them didn't even make it over, but several amount did come over and work on the plantations. And 1765, does anyone know what happened in 1765? It was the American Revolution.
The American Revolution.
American Revolution.
Good job,
British
guys.
troops against colonists, guys. How much of a big deal is that?
Yeah.
Amazing. Big deal.
British troops come over and we have a bunch of British people like wandering around being like, hey, and then we have French troops sent over around 1778 to help the colonists, and that's how we won our independence, 1776 all the way. But anyways. Right. Then we have the Northwest Ordinances of 1784, 1785, and 1787, which basically allowed settlers to go out to the Northwest Territory and settle it and establish how to make states. We also have the Peace Treaty that opened the Mississippi River up to American navigation. And finally, for my period, we have the Alien and Sedition Acts, which is aimed at French immigrants, and John Adams was like, we don't want you here, get out of our country. But a lot of people were against it. But that's it for periods 1 to 3, the most amazing period, and I'll turn it over to my friend Erica.
So we're gonna start with period 4, 1800 to 1848. You got the election of Thomas Jefferson as a turning point. It was the first peaceful transfer of power. Yeah, and then it ends with the Seneca Falls Convention. So America got new land from the Louisiana Purchase. It actually doubled the size of America. So then, with the purchase of the Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson sent out people to go explore this new land. So people just started to see, what was going on. Yeah, Sacagawea, she helped Lewis and Clark. So, they also, with the expanding land, they started
Expanding country?
so they needed to start connecting the regions. So they started developing railroads and canals. You have the Erie Canal, you have the Transcontinental Railroad. So the North and the Midwest are really connected at this time because of the industrialization of the region, but the South was kind of excluded because they focused so much on cotton and other stuff like that. So then you had the old immigrants coming over from North and West Europe, like Germans and the Irish. So the Irish were escaping the potato famine, and the Germans came over. And they lived in Ohio, and they were farmers, and they lived in the frontier. While the Irish, they actually settled in cities in the Northeast, and they were mainly Democrats and Catholics, which was a really big impact because America didn't really like Catholics, and they also were urban workers. So there became a greater interdependence between the Northeast and the Northwest as both regions started to grow more and more. And so then also you had people from Asia coming over, like the Chinese who worked on the West Coast, in California with the gold rush of 1849. And so people started to move west because there was more land for farming, and also because in the South, plantation was really exhausting the land.
Wait a minute. What happens when they don't farm the land?
What do you mean?
That's something in my periods.
Oh,
The
what?
Dust Bowl.
The Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That happened in the Great Plains when a severe drought hit and killed a bunch of people, crops.
People that were kind of going through where the Mormons, they fled to Utah to Brigham Young for religious refuge. And then also with the expanding regions, the government really didn't know what to do with the Indians. So with the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears, the Indians just kept being pushed west and west and west. Then we move on to period 5. So you have the election of Polk and Manifest Destiny to the end of Reconstruction. So Manifest Destiny was like, wow, we really need to keep expanding west, keep going west, keep going west. And then this kind of was re-emphasized with the Mexican Cession, which they gained from the Mexican-American War. And then as they kept going west and getting more land, they thought, well, why don't we just open up Japan? So, you had Matthew Perry knocking on the door, Ross, come on, let me go. And then, so as, we kept going, we get more nativist movements. We got the Know Nothing Party. They wanted to limit the powers of immigrants. They were anti-Catholic. But then, the government was like, wow, we really need to keep expanding, so they provided subsidies and land grants, like the Homestead Act, which provided 160 acres to improve the land. And then people sadly thought that African Americans should be sent back to Africa when they got free, so that was like Henry Clay thought of the American Colonization Society. And then so after Reconstruction, you had the carpetbaggers, which were the people that packed up and moved to the South following Reconstruction. And so throughout the period 5, you had more economic opportunities as you moved west. There was a safety valve theory, you move west and make money. And so yeah, people moved to Texas and stuff like that, California with the gold rush. There's things like Comstock Lode in the South, etc. And then finally, period 6, you got the end of Civil War and then the Spanish-American War, which was really big turning point. So now you have the new immigrants from South and East Europe, like the Jews, and then also people from Italy, Greece, Russia, and Poland. So they mainly lived in cities and they developed ethnic enclaves, which was really...
Ethnic enclaves are like areas in like certain like cities or like states where a certain population of people all have like similar beliefs or similar culture.
Chinatown, Little Italy.
Join together so like they don't feel as alone in like a biggest like
Yeah, because like during this time especially the government passed things like the Chinese Exclusion Act, which really just shut the Chinese out because people feared that the Chinese were stealing their jobs.
And that lasted for a while.
Yeah. And then but some good things came out of it, like the creation of the settlement house by
Whole
Jane
House.
Addams. Yep.
That was for women and immigrants.
Yep.
Settlement houses were.
The main theme for like all of my periods was like people were trying to escape religious persecutions, like the Jews in Russia. There was limited opportunity for social mobility in Europe, so then they thought that coming to America they could go from rags to riches. So yeah, mainly just financial opportunities.
Also, we can see coming into play in your period is like Chinese Exclusion Act, where immigrants are like not allowed to come in, much like the Alien Sedition Acts. So we see
like
a
the
pattern.
Immigration quotas in my period.
Exactly. So we see this pattern where like first we want immigrants to come for jobs, and then we're like, actually no, go back. So
Yeah, because like
It's like a back and forth.
immigrants are like the ideal labor source because they work for free, so basically free.
Literally was at Benice internment camp. So it's just weird how like a lot of people came to the U.S. for like to escape like religious like problems and like cultural problems, but like they still had like were impacted by them in the United States.
So period 7 to 9 is all about internal migration. So you see the Great Migration is one of the biggest things that happened in the 1900s. This took place from 1916 to 1970, and it was a movement of 6 million African Americans. So most of this migration took place after the Great Depression. So African Americans were looking for social and economic equality.
That could be seen as like a comparison to like my period where they thought that moving west could bring them, new life.
Yeah. Yes, and all this hope for social equality was also brought up by the civil rights movements in the 1960s, for example. Suburbs and cars also increased migration because places like Levittown attracted people because it was away from the city and they could still have their city jobs within the comfort of a rural style home.
and it's super affordable.
Yeah.
Because of the development of mass production, they could easily build a house.
Interchangeable
some
parts.
people-
Brought up a lot by the automobiles, which also started a lot of environmental
Awareness.
issues.
Yeah,
Like the Clean Air Act and
It
stuff.
was Teddy Roosevelt,
Yeah.
and it was
John
Rachel
Muir.
Carson, Silent Spring, that brought awareness to the toxins which are used in the environment.
So there's two major migration patterns in this country. The Sun Belt, people wanted to go to the south and the west because it was warm and sunny. And then the Rust Belt, that was all the failing factories and gross factory-based economy regions in the northeastern United States, so people would migrate away from there. Yeah, so steel-producing cities in Pennsylvania and Ohio were places that no one really wanted to be. Speaking of places that people don't want people to be, this
America!
Yeah! So Americans didn't want immigrants. We all know that.
Wow, this goes back to my period and your period.
And today.
And today.
Oh my gosh, it's a continuing theme.
Whoa!
Whoa.
So the quota system, this was bad. So the quota system was brought up through legislation like the Emergency Quota Act of 1921, which limited immigration to 3%
a year.
Yeah. And then the Immigration Act of 1924, which limited it down to 2%.
So before it was if there was 100 people,
only 3 people.
but then now it's only 2.
And this was using the 1890 census where there were much less people. So that was really mean. Immigration from Latin America and Asia increased a lot during this time.
Especially during the 80s and
Yeah.
the 70s and 80s.
and they were underrepresented through the Quota Acts of the 20s. Anyway, the Immigrant Act of 1965 overturned the Quota Acts, and these immigrants, as mentioned before, were a great supply of labor.
Great supply of labor.
So a lot of issues during this time was stemmed around communism, because as we know, World War II was fought. So communism, communism was a thing during this time, 1940s and later, Cold War, World War II, all that jazz. No one liked communism. So George F. Kennan, we all know him, he coined the term containment. So many different people wanted to contain or prevent the spread of communism. Just like President Truman, So, yeah, and the domino theory said that when one nation falls to communism, all the ones around it would. So people in this country were very conflicted over whether we should get into other countries' affairs or whether we should just stay in our own business. So that led some conflict. Basically, my era was about internal migration and seeking economic and social equality and prosperity.
Conclusion time.
Okay, so we can just all agree that throughout the time, there's a really big desire for people coming over to America to get new opportunities, as well as people going throughout America. They thought, oh, if I move here, maybe I could become rich.
Yes, ma'am.
You can see this for the Puritans escaping, your period. You see the gold rush. You see the safe value theory throughout the time. You think
Great Migration.
You see the Great Migration
coming
thinking
over.
the Great Migration thinking that people can, they can maybe start their new life in the North after the Reconstruction era.
Okay, so basically to sum it up, there was a lot of people coming over to America and migrating within America in order to find economic freedom, religious freedom, and a lot of new opportunities that they either couldn't find in their previous location or their previous country. There's also a lot of people coming over for a better life. And a lot of people just came over because they heard good things about America, and they were like, I want to check that out.
I feel like throughout the eras, there wasn't really that many people leaving America. It was mainly more people coming to America. Since the beginning, it was this new place that people wanted to come to, and
see it.
We're the land of the free and the home of the brave.
The Statue of Liberty on Ellis Island, and that just kind of all pertains into migration. It just shows how much of a staple America is to giving people a better life and helping people
There's always
better.
a chance in America.
Yeah, when Europeans came to America, the Statue of Liberty was the first thing that they saw. So
there's a lot of stories of rags to riches, and a lot of those are through America, and it just shows that America is a really good place to get back on your feet.
So yeah, overall, we can all agree that America is a pretty nice place to live. So hope you guys enjoyed our podcast.
Good luck on your test.
Hopefully you're not A-pushed over the edge.
Yeah, good luck on your test.
Especially the one in May.
Especially the one in May.
Everyone's going to do great. And I want to shout out to Miss Belknap's class, period 6.
I'd also like to shout out Adam Norris. Thank you for saving my grade. And of course, Miss Belknap, you're the best teacher in the world.
Yay.
Bye.
Adios.